Hello, to start off the video, I'd like to say it's good to be back. For those who kept tabs on my channel, about a month ago, I announced in my community post that I'd be taking a break because I was nearing finals week for my college and I wanted to focus on my school grades. So for those who waited patiently, much love to y'all. Now, let's get into it. You see the title, you see the thumbnail. If you're a regular on my channel, you know I don't usually make these type of response videos unless something really strikes a chord within my soul. To give some backstory, while I was studying for my classes, I decided to take a break and hop on YouTube, of course. To my surprise, I was recommended a video titled, "The Lolicon hate is so forced, overblown, and overdone, it's laughable." And my reaction was, why is YouTube recommending me this video to me right now? And I was like, okay, it's fine. I am Mr. Gay People benefit for a doubt. Maybe this video is satire. I was wrong. To keep it real, this was the most asinine video I've ever seen. Keep in mind, the video is 22 minutes long and the guy, JSenpaiX, kept rambling defending Lolicon, going on many different tangents. And after watching that dumpster fire of a video, I knew I had to respond. But of course, not right away. So I decided to actually make a response video when my semester is fully done. So JSenpaiX, after watching a video and doing a little bit more research, I have this to say. You're a weirdo, an incel, and just a straight up EDP sympathizer, and I'll explain why. My initial problem with Jay's video is that he completely failed to define the things he was talking about. Listen, I do not care if it was an unscripted rant, because I've done one a while ago, and I was able to manage to be more concise and organized than you were. But that's not the point here. The point is that he fails to define loli and lolicon. This matters to me because personally, whenever I'm in a discussion, whether it's serious or casual, I always define the terms I'm using. To me, that's the best way to address any topic in good faith. If y'all really tapped in my channel, you know I'm a guest on the All Around podcast where I'm constantly using this tactic. I find this necessary because words can have many different meanings depending on the context being used. His failure to define what a loli is feels strangely odd, especially considering how deep the conversation goes and the length people will really go to justify their judgment. But luckily, a person offered to help my video in efforts to define what a loli is. So take it away, JSenpaiX4.
Hi and welcome to my guest part. I know that you guys are probably thinking right now, who is this guy? My name is JSenpaiX4 and I'm mostly a YouTube critic. And in my guest part for this video, I'm gonna explain the three forms of Lolicon and Shouldacon. Because yes, there are multiple variations of this, as if Lolicon itself isn't bad enough. And if you are gonna ask me what my personal stance is on Lolicon, in my opinion, Lolicon and Shouldacon are drawn CP and should be treated as such. With that out of the way, let me tell you guys the three forms of Lolicon. The first form is Child Loli. Okay, we're starting off strong. Child Loli is Lolicon of characters that are canonically under the age of 13. Do I have to tell you all why Child Loli is bad? I really hope I don't have to. This is literal drawn CP. The second form is Teen Loli. The age range of the character for this form of loli is 13 to 18. In my opinion, it's not as bad, but still very criticizable and very bad. And the last form is Legal Loli. That is basically Lolicon / Shouldacon with characters over 18, but still designed to look like children, which is morally just fucked. I mean, if people defend Legal Loli, then that's okay for me. To a certain extent, but when it's something like Child Loli or Teen Loli, yeah, you deserve to be in a cell. Is it still morally wrong to make Lolicon even though with Legal Loli? Yeah, since the characters are designed to look like children, so it's obviously morally wrong. Anyways, that's it for my guest part for Pris. I hope you all liked my little lesson or explaining session. I'm gonna give the video back to Pris now. Thank you for having me on here, and with that, thanks, bye.
I appreciate that, JSenpaiX4. I'll make sure to put his channel link down below in the YouTube description. Make sure to check him out. Now, to stay on topic. Like I said before, this guy did a lot of yapping. Before we dive into the real problems, I want to address some comments he made around the 2-minute mark. Our friend here, Jay, made some remarks about women's issue in Japan. Now, normally, I don't like to speak on social issues of other countries since I don't live there, but I still feel like Jay's comments are still heavily disingenuous.
So basically it was like on some time of like, oh, no woman in Japan feels safe, but I guarantee you if you took a damn plane ticket to Japan right now and you went over there to observe the women, I'm pretty sure a fair amount of them is gonna be feeling pretty at home.
And let me stop you right there. It's no secret that some Asian countries have long-standing issues when it comes to women's rights. While I don't constantly read upon these issues, I'm aware of how women are treated from these countries. Whether it's cases of SA, workplace disparities, or countless other examples, the point is that women in general have always been historically discriminated against, and that still persists to this day. Yes, it's better, but it's not ideal nor it's perfect, and we still need to work on those issues. But when it comes to how Asian countries mistreat their women, I don't have to say anything about it because you already brought up a great example of it.
I'm pretty damn sure. Is there some things that could be changed over there? Sure. You know, there could be. Like, for instance, there shouldn't be a damn rail car that separates the men and the women because men should learn how to keep their hands to themselves. Sure. We shouldn't even have that in the first damn place.
So let me get this straight. You kind of undermine the problems of women in Japan by saying that majority of women don't care and are already used to it, but you also realize that there are some problems within their culture to the point that women and men have to be separated when it comes to transportations. You see how you like indirectly contradicted yourself? If we look at women's issue in the West, it hasn't gone to the point that government bodies have to understand to protect women to the point to separate both men and women. In your comment earlier about asking women in Japan how they feel, talking about it probably say they're used to it, of course, it's how it works. Someone who's born and raised in a society that doesn't treat them with the best wouldn't have an accurate sense of severity of the situation. Some do understand the severity within their country, and that's why we see a becoming movement for women, like for the 4B movement in South Korea. But let's take your hypothetical. Let's say we took a flight to North Korea and asked the citizens, is it safe? Of course, they'll respond positively to that question, but that doesn't mean their situation is actually ideal or not. This is where Jay gets more into the topic of Loli. Stay with me. From the 2-minute 5-second mark to the 3:25 mark, he argues that censorship of Lolicon material will lead to other broader forms of censorship within media, which is inherently not true. Lolicon in of itself isn't really a mainstream thing, and only a large minority of people actually defend it. Newsflash, censorship is already a thing that exists within our media. The issue with Lolicon is that it treads in the line of people's morality, which is why it gets scrutinized so much. I'll dive deep into that later on in this video, but the way Jay frames it, the whole conversation about Lolicon is just a difference of opinion, and he treats it like it's not a big deal. But for me, I only have that mentality when it comes to really trivial things that really doesn't matter. For example, I'm not gonna tweak out if someone says they like oranges over mangoes, because sometimes it is just a matter of different opinion, but this is not those times. When it comes to something that crosses your line of morality potentially, you just gotta put your foot down. And he goes on to say this.
If Loli were to go, guess what? They're probably gonna attack furry shit next. And then they're probably gonna attack violence again in games and media and shit like that next. Until they basically control effing everything that we like. And I don't see how people don't see that shit. I don't understand that.
Okay, let's run that back. You said if Lolicon were to go, they will probably attack furries and violence within video games next. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Those two things are already being attacked. What I mean is that one, being a furry in the big 2024 will get you a lot of hate to this day. This is not a new thing. The general perspective of furries is not positive. You can say it's getting better. If a random person right now will come out as a furry, people will still laugh at them. That goes for the internet and in real life. And when it comes to your comment of they will attack violence within video games, like bro, have you been alive for the past 15 years? Dude, I turned 21 about in 2 weeks. Yes, you can get the comments out the way. But I vividly remember writing argumentative essays in middle school and in high school about how violent video games don't negatively impact society. The criticism of violent video games is an ongoing subject ever since the inception of games like GTA and Mortal Kombat. So the fact that you're pretending that those two things already don't get attacked is like actually like laughable. So it begs the question, how disconnected is bro from reality? Let's continue. So around the 3:25 to 5-minute mark, he claims that modern day anime was actually built on Lolicon and Shota culture. I'm like, whoa, slow down, let's get to the facts right now. He goes on to list the following characters as either Loli or Shota. 1, we have Astro Boy, Arale from Dr. Slump, and Kid fucking Goku. Then he mentioned the Loliconboom that took place within the 80s. But before we even get to that, let's focus on what you just said. I do not care what anyone tells me. A child within anime is not automatically a Loli or Shota by default. In my experience with this discussion, Lolicon and Shotacon are inherently pornographic in nature. I will say this for the people in the back. People are not upset about the existence of kids within anime because that's of course ridiculous to say. What people are upset about is how these characters are associated with pornographic materials or any other sexual content. And that's why he intentionally tries to avoid it, because the real topic is whether this is or isn't acceptable, and he doesn't even try to address that directly. He tiptoes around it. Now, just like me, you guys are probably wondering, what the hell is the Loliconboom? So even though Chonshin said that a good job explaining what Loli is, we could always go deeper. Loli or Lolicon are both Japanese abbreviation of the Lolita complex. Lolita is a novel written by Vladimir Novikov. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. The novel centers around a man with an obsession with a 12-year-old little girl named Durlis Hayes, who he names Lolita. Yes, you didn't mishear me. For obvious reason, this novel was deemed hella controversial from this time, even is to this day. And before even making this video or watching Jay's video, I was highly aware of this novel. I'm pretty sure I watched like an hour-long video of a YouTuber going over the context over the books, and if you guys find that interesting, I will try to find it again and put a link down below. But yeah, the book itself is actually OD. But as bad as that sound, we got to stay on track. If we look at Wikipedia, yes, Wikipedia, I know it's Wikipedia, but when it comes to internet culture, it's hard to find any scholarly works dealing with the subject. So Wikipedia defines Loli as a genre of fictional media which focuses on young girls or young looking girl characters, particularly in sexual, suggestive, or erotic manner. So once again, we can see a clear link between Loli and the sexualization of it. So when it comes to the Loliconboom, it took place around 1970 to the 80s, where Loli/Shota content was abundant and were erotic in nature. Wikipedia goes on to explain that these erotic mangas of children took over. Entering out the 80s, this trend slowly died, becoming a subculture within the erotic manga genre. And that right there is the real problem people have with this niche. Some argues there is a strong connection between children and sexualized content. Even when I tried looking up lolis and lolicon for research for this video, I came across a lot of non-safe for work depiction of kids. I am not gonna show them for obvious reasons, but it's crazy. The segment that Jay talks about the Lolicon boom, he shows a panel where it looks like a prepubescent little girl with a hyperfixation on her diapers. I refuse to show it on my channel because, you know, morality exists. But as I rewatched Jay's original video, and when I actually stumbled across it, realizing what it was, I was actually shocked. And the fact that he didn't blur it shows how degenerate this guy really is. I'm at the point where no amount of context can help you, Jay, justifying why you have to show that panel to your audience. And Jay, if you do not find that panel weird, I want you to take out the word weird out your vocabulary because you're apparently never going to use it in your lifetime. And let's assume half of the 500 people who liked this video that you made saw that panel and it was like, yeah, I'm gonna still like this. This means something to me. That's actually crazy work. From the 2-minute span from 524 to 735, he keeps on rambling about how Loli is actually the backbone of the anime community. So, for the sake of argumentation, let's say, okay, Loli is the backbone of the anime community. That doesn't automatically mean that it's just to be protected. If you take a look at modern day anime, you can see how they took a step away from this direction from the 80s. The anime industry has the clear capacity to evolve and change without relying on sexually non-neural girls in their stories. And Jay goes on to cry about how other people shouldn't ruin the fun of others' enjoyment. And I'm like, okay, just hurry up and turn your hard drive to the FBI, bruh, because we already know what's on it. And oddly enough, he actually gives a dig at Steven Universe.
If you want sensitive stuff and you want things where it's in your feelings and stuff like that, go watch Western cartoons. Steven Universe was a heavy ass example of that shit, and I can understand why people hate Steven Universe.
I honestly don't know what the hell that even means because I have Steven Universe at an 8 out of 10. If we're not talking about future but the original run of the show, Steven Universe is objectively a good show. And I rarely come across people who actually have a disdain for that show in my personal life. And I don't know what the hell you mean by emotional and sensitive, because anime is exactly known for having the most gut-punching, heart-wrenching moments. So I ask again, how tapped in are you? We get to the 8-minute mark to 9-minute mark when he just complains about how anime is becoming more mainstream and how newcomers are coming into the community just ruining the status quo. For one, I don't get why people hate on the fact that anime itself is becoming more of a popular genre. because more eyes on the product means more money for the business you want to see thrive succeed. And it's okay for people to come in the anime community and ask questions. We are not a cult that feed off an echo chamber. If the criticism is genuine, we can have an honest conversation about it. And from the 941 to 1016 mark, he complains about how woke culture is affecting gaming, like boo-hoo, we heard this before. Let me play the world's tiniest violin for you.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
As we enter this part of the video, this is where things really pick up. You may ask how? Well, let's let Jay explain.
And then another thing to add to it, to people that be like, well, I don't like this type of material, this shit is weird as hell and all that type of stuff, fine, but it shouldn't be banned. Because you do realize that there is still a market for this shit, right? Because you do realize that there is still a market for this shit, right?
So let me get this straight, just because there's a market for it, it makes it totally permissible? Oh, okay, I understand it now. Because there's a market for human trafficking, there's a market for sex work, and there's a market for drugs. You see where I'm going with this? There's a market for a lot of things I consider humanly horrible. You made a stupid point, but let's move on. He goes on to explain how Loli is perfectly legal in Japan and that makes it okay. But that's not inherently true. But let's all agree, the whole but is legal argument is just a red flag in itself. But before we talk about the legality of Loli within Japan, he made a pretty bold claim. He goes on to talk about how if he would have asked the whole anime community about their opinions on Lolicon and Shotacon, he said that about 50% wouldn't care or they will show their support for it. And I'm like, that's like definitely not true. Because like I said earlier, being a Lolicon enthusiast is like a really niche genre within the community. And the public perception of Lolicon within anime is actually negative. But this is where it gets good. Around 12:25 to 13-minute mark, he actually mentioned how Japan passed a bill restricting Loli content. So it begs the question, what would Japan, the governmental body, pass an act to restrict the production of this content? It seems that this content is kinda, inherently problematic. So what is this bill? I'm glad you asked. Before going to the content of this bill, I want to keep in mind that I'm not the best person when it comes to analyzing legal documents. It's a skill that I'm trying to improve upon, but please don't take my words as absolute fact. I am just interpreting what I think the bill is designed to do. And I will leave multiple links discussing the bill within the content of my description if you guys are interested in checking it out. Now, the Act on Regulating and Punishment of Acts Relating to Child P-Work and Cheese Pizza, which I will refer to as Act 52. It just is how Japan's view the possibility of children being put in non-safe work environments. I will be reading the direct words from the act as such. Purpose, Article 1. The purpose of this act is in light of gravity that sexual exploitation and sexual abuse of children seriously infringe upon their rights, and take into account that international trend relating to the protection of the rights of children, protect the rights of children by regulating and punishing act, etc. relating to child P-work and cheese pizza, and by providing measures for protecting children who have consequently suffered physically or mentally from the act, etc. The act goes on to describe child as any person under the age of 18. I want to focus on Japan's views of cheese pizza as I believe this is what the Lolicon discussion is about. The act reads as this. The term cheese pizza as used in this act means photograph recording mediums containing electronic or magnetic record, meaning a record using computerized information processing which creates electronic form, magnetic form, or any other form that cannot be perceived by human senses. The same applies hereinafter, or any of the following medium which depicts the image of a child in a form recognizable by the sense of sight. 1. Any image of sexual intercourse of any child between children. 2. Any image of a child having the genital organs, etc. touched by another person, or of a child touching another person's genital organ, etc., which arouses or stimulates sexual desires. Or 3. Any image of a child wholly or partially naked in which sexual body parts of the child, genital organs, or the parts around them, buttocks or chest, are exhibited or emphasized, arouses or simulates sexual desire. What I managed to gather for the portion of the bill is that it was intended to stop production of cheese pizza by maintaining strict regulation on the depiction of minors with non-safe for work content. It prohibits any recognizable sexual act involving minors in digital media that is visible. You can clearly see how Loli/Shotacon can possibly go against these rules, but there's something that was mentioned in the bill that should be looked at. In applying this act, care must be taken not to improperly infringe upon the rights and freedom of citizens relating academic research, culture, and artistic activity is impressed, and the act is not to be abused for other purposes deviating from the original purpose of protecting children from sexual exploitation and sexual abuse and protecting their rights. Unfortunately, this gives some leeway that can be argued to give Lolicon a legal way to exist, but like I said, it can be argued. To me, the bill sets up plausible deniability when it comes to Lolicon, but this doesn't give Lolicon the green flag some people may think. As I was looking more into this bill, I stumbled upon a different article from the NYSBA Tokyo Conference 2019, which tackles on this topic much more, seeing if Lolicon would be considered legal or illegal under Act 52. To keep it short and simple, I will read the opening paragraph of the article and give the conclusion. People addresses whether virtual cheese pizza that has fictitious depictions of childlike characters in erotic comics, games, or animation could fall under the definitions of human trafficking and can be criminally banned in Japan. If that is the case, the paper seeks to answer under what circumstance could virtual cheese pizza, also known as Lolicon, can be criminally prohibited in Japan without breaching other legally protected rights such as freedom of expression. So already this article conveys the idea that Lolicon could be regarded as virtual cheese pizza, and has the goal of seeing if Lolicon can be regarded as illegal material within Japan's law. Within Jay's video, he makes the point that the restriction of Lolicon would be a violation of his free speech. And my response is, do you really want to argue why the legalization of children being depicted in lewd acts violates your freedom of speech and freedom of expression? And before I continue, I want to ask the Lolicon defenders a question. What is the difference between Lolicon pornographic content and AI-generated depictions of children within the same light? The reason I'm bringing it up is that a few months ago I heard a story about a man in Canada being arrested for using photos of children to generate AI cheese pizza. Of course, the argument from Lolicon defender is that it's just art, separated from reality, and they love to say that no real kids are being harmed. So of course, making deepfakes of real-life kids is something Lolicon artists are not doing since they're making up characters. That would be a great argument if you don't consider the bigger picture. But what do you think about a person creating cheese pizza of real children without using actual photos of them? Does the lack of real child involvement makes it any less harmful? Or does it still pose a significant ethical legal concern? Because we understand how AI works. It relies on the data it's fed to improve its ability to generate what it's asked. For example, if I tell ChatGPT to draw a horse and it doesn't know what a horse is, it needs a reference, whether it's a picture or a description, so it can learn how to complete the task. Similarly, if AI is being used to generate explicit content involving children, it will need to be trained on existing images or data, which raises serious concerns about how the data is being sourced and what ethical implications arises from using such materials. This relates to Lolicon artists because they often use commonly associated physical traits and characteristics of children within their work. Even though the characters are fictional, they are designed to resemble children in a way that can be disturbing and problematic, just like with AI. These indicators rely on certain visual cues, references, which can perpetuate harmful ideas about sexuality in minors, even if no real kids are being harmed or directly involved. If you support the act of Lolicon art, you have to also support the use of AI deepfakes of children, which is disgusting. Now for the closing statement of the article I learned to. Japanese law does not prohibit any drawings or computer-generated images of minors engaging in lewd act, as long as there is no real child and such images do not depict genitalia. The obscenity laws in Japan has applied using content-free reasoning that is just focused on what an image or text is showing or should not show genitalia, instead of underlying messages that such expressions could carry accordingly. A prohibition of Lolicon could be rendered unconstitutional under domestic law, even if Japan adopts the approach that international law indeed prohibits virtual cheese pizza or Lolicon. It is also unsure whether there is a general prohibition of virtual cheese pizza under international law. Moreover, it is also uncertain whether this form of pornography can even cause any harm at all, or whether it is commonly used as a method to groom children. Nonetheless, there is room to consider virtual cheese pizza as part of the definition of human trafficking. If it's used as means of deceit or coercion, or if these pornographic images are indistinguishable from real minors, which then can arguably hinder the arrest and prosecution of actual child abusers. These two forms of criminalization of virtual cheese pizza will arguably not clash with Japan's protection of freedom of expression and will reinforce the mission that human trafficking is a serious crime that needs to be severely punished. What I gather from that is that even though it doesn't outright ban these type of content, Japan can obviously set up possibilities of banning such materials down the road if more evidence points to the need of strict regulations. With more and more people joining conversations and seeing what has happened, it only adds fuel to discussion. The growing discourse around the topic could lead to banning of Lolicon or similar content. This is what people like JSenpai are afraid of. So they intentionally misguide their audience and swing the narrative in their favor. They aim to keep the anime community as protected as possible, making it a gated group without any outside voices and showing their echo chamber remains strong. Moving along with his video, from the 13-minute mark to the 14-minute mark, he begins to brag about how artists got around these bills with the whole 1,000-year-old lolly trick. Like, bro, you are bragging about how these people can set up plausible deniability. If you don't know what he's talking about, sometimes artists will intentionally design characters that look pubescent in nature and claims that they're really old, by claiming that their mental age is much older than it appears to be. But you know, that's not a perfect safety net for someone with a fully developed frontal lobe, and maybe that's why y'all love children so much. You cannot pull a fast one on an adult. Hey man, it's just a theory. But to stay serious, that's not the one you think it is. He starts bringing up characters like Tatsumaki from One Punch Man, who I might add is not a loli, just a character who can be mistaken for a younger person. I have to admit, it's been a long time since I watched One Punch Man, but when it comes to Tatsumaki, while I can remember, the joke is that she could be mistaken for a kid, not that she actually is one. She is a grown woman and acts accordingly, and is only being treated the opposite only for comedic effects. And the thing with her character design is that she's not tall or overly voluptuous like her sister. She's short and petite, but she still has a hourglass figure that is still more commonly associated with mature adults. All I'm saying is, when it comes in the line, if you just look at her, you can clearly put out more adult features associated with being an adult woman than a female child. And let's not gloss over the fact that there are real-life adults who look a lot younger than they actually are. I know that for a fact because I'm one of them. I'm still in my early 20s and people still confuse me for a high schooler. Now I said the best for last. I kid you not, this portion of the video, he goes on a complete rant about the only reason why people care about this issue is because women sit on the internet and just complain about it. But bro, I've seen both men and women hate on Lolicon. And I've also seen both men and women defend Lolicon. This isn't a gender issue. It's more of a who has a high school diploma issue. It is clearly showing. That's why I called him an insult in my thumbnail. He's a grown-ass man on the internet complaining about the only reason why people don't like the depiction of kids and non-safe material because of women. He just reuses sneakers/first-to-face anti-woke talking points like blah blah blah, woke it was bad, bro we get it. 2025, let's leave that to 2024. And he caps off the video saying that this is just part of Japan's culture and we need to accept it because we're the foreigners. No. In my opinion, people are perfectly allowed to critique other people's cultures if it's done in a respectful manner and it's in good faith. I can say that because I am a foreigner living in America. And by the way, I've seen a lot of Asian people condemn Lolicon too, so your report is also invalid. So, try again. And to end this video, I want to give my conclusion. Jay, you're fucking weird. Like in my original script, I was talking about how I don't believe you're an EDP. You just use talking points to support it. But taking a glance at your channel again, post-production, in one of his earlier videos, he mentioned that he likes gooding to Eri content. You know, Eri from My Hero Academia. And he was like openly proud of it too. So any good faith intention to have for you in my original script, yeah, out the window right now. And for some reason, you want to blame women on why people hate Loli. That's like not true. So overall, yeah, this was a really daunting video to make. A lot of research went into the development of this video. So make sure to give a like and subscribe or just comment down your thoughts. But yeah, this guy seems like the complete antithesis of my existence, so I don't want to make any response video for any content he has made. Unless he coincidentally makes a video that is really personal and specific to me. Hopefully, that doesn't happen. Hold on, let me look up a recommendation again for any videos to watch after this. You gotta be fucking kidding me.